Welcome back to World Crisis Radio. This is Webster Tarpley in Washington, D.C. Let me just repeat the leading organizing point, the big news of the week, I think, in many ways, apart from assorted anniversaries and some events connected with those. The question of the Tobin tax, the question of making the Wall Street hyenas pay for the depression which they have created, because they did it, and, of course, through their control of the government, but that just leads back to them. It is Wall Street that runs the Federal Reserve, after all, and not the other way around. It is the Wall Street hyenas who have created this world economic depression. And the anniversary we also ought to be thinking about this week is the infamous meeting at the New York Federal Reserve on September 15th, 2008, when it was obvious that Lehman Brothers was about to blow, and Geithner, who is now at the Treasury, called in people like Jamie Dimon of J.P. Morgan Chase, Pandit the Bandit of Citibank, Mack of Morgan Stanley, Blankfein of Goldman Sachs, Lewis of Bank of America, and so forth, and they put together the idea of the bailout, the TARP, the $700 billion of Treasury money for the derivatives bubble. Those guys have never been called to account. And we just had this afternoon, Mac is on CNBC saying, we're still here, we're Morgan Stanley, we are in the risk business, risk is us. Well, this is exactly what has got to be addressed. The Wall Street financial lampreys created a world economic depression with speculation, above all derivative speculation, but also other kinds. At the same time, we've got every state in the union, virtually, in the midst of a severe financial crisis with all kinds of cuts to services, and of course we've got these gaping deficits at the federal level. As you look around the panorama of economic activity, everything is taxed and indeed overtaxed. Certainly individuals should not be taxed, most of them anyway, more than currently. So what's left? What's left is speculation, derivative speculation, stock options, stock futures, stocks, bonds, commodities, foreign exchange, and so forth. None of that is taxed. The average person pays a sales tax. There's a trading tax or transfer tax on you. It's a sales tax. It's usually in the range between 5 and 10%. In some states, you're paying that on your groceries. Nevertheless, the Wall Street fat cat bankers, these parasites, pay zero on their immense turnovers of quadrillions of dollars per year that go across these exchanges. So the news is the AFL-CIO is proposing and mobilizing, I believe, their significant lobbying capability for a trading tax or Tobin tax. Now, they propose 1 mil, that is 1/10 of 1 cent. It's the smallest monetary unit. There is no coin that represents a mil, at least not today. Still, the idea is on the table. They seem to be talking about stocks more than anything else, and they're talking about 1 mil. So fine. So as far as that goes, we support it. But it's got to be strengthened and broadened. It should not be 1 mil. God knows, if you ask for 1 mil at the beginning of the fight, you're going to end up with zero. If you demand 1 or 2% or 5%, maybe you'll end up with 1% or 1 mil. But you've got a better chance of ending up with something. In other words, don't make your proposal unrealistically weak at the very beginning unless the whole thing is simply a pro forma exercise to cover one's posteriors. Let's, however, assume the best for the AFL-CIO. They're talking about 1/10 of 1%, 1 mil tax on stock turnover that could create $50 billion to $100 billion per year. Well, my calculation is much bigger. With 1 quadrillion of derivatives and a general turnover of between 1 and 2 quadrillion, which is probably lowball right now in the age of flash trading and high-frequency trading, my estimate is that you'd get between 10 and 20 trillion dollars. 5/10 of 1% go to the feds. Say it's 5 trillion at the very least, and 5 trillion distributed among the states, at which point the deficits of the various states and localities disappear. California comes out of the crisis. Teachers, hospital workers, nurses, firemen, policemen, firefighters out in the sagebrush there are all rehired, and the process of reinvesting in U.S. infrastructure can begin again. The Tobin tax also obviously violates one of the main contentions of this wild casino gambling economy, the risk economy that Mac is talking about this afternoon on television, that hot money should flow wherever it wants to, whenever it wants to, without paying a penny. No, enough. Speculation is destroying the world. Derivative speculation more than any other kind, but also stocks, bonds, commodity futures. God knows if you paid $5 a gallon for gasoline in the summer of 2008, that was almost exclusively speculation, almost exclusively from Goldman Sachs and indeed from Morgan Stanley through the London ICE exchange. So here are reasons to stop encouraging speculation. If everything else is taxed and speculation is not, this amounts to a government encouragement for people to speculate more. And this is obviously what we do not need. These activities are parasitical. They don't add one penny of real production to the economy. Rather, of course, they destroy it, which is what happens when you jack up the price of gasoline to $5 a barrel, $5 a gallon, and the price of oil to almost $150 a barrel. So we want to welcome the AFL-CIO joining in on this campaign. At the same time, we want to stress that their proposal is inadequate. It is too small. $1 million is not enough. If you end up with $1 million, that's one thing, but not $1 million at the beginning. It is too weak. It's half-hearted. It's destined to be an uncertain trumpet. And rather than simply focus on stocks, where the average person might feel, well, that's going to be a tax on me because I do buy things for my 401k or my IRA, let's focus more on derivatives. Let's focus on foreign exchange. Let's focus on commodity speculation. With commodity speculation, you could be saying to somebody, look, we're going to make it harder for Goldman Sachs to jack up the price of gasoline to $5 a gallon, and we're also going to make it harder for these derivatives merchants to add to the derivatives bubble, which is what's costing you $180 billion through the AIG bailout. So with a Tobin tax on those, you can make it understandable to the average person why this is in the public interest. In addition to the revenue you're getting, which is obviously vital at this point of almost universal bankruptcy, you can also discourage speculation, and you can promote the process of refocusing economic activity out of the financial, casino, gambling, globalized, hot money, speculative, parasitical economy where the wolves dominate. You shift that back into solid production, infrastructure, agriculture, construction, scientific research, and so forth. So on to the Tobin tax, make it 1%, and put it on all forms of financial flows. Back in a minute.